So, elephant is the slowest breeder. One pair produce only 6 offsprings in their lifetime of 100 years. If all the offsprings survive, and allowed to reproduce at the same rate, it will result 19 million descendants within a span of 750 years. 750 वर्ष भितरे that number will be 19 million. जदि यही रेट रे तांकर रिप्रोडक्शन हुए एवं समस्ते सर्वाइव करती. So that is known as overproduction. Then survivors number remain constant. Irrespective of the rate of reproduction, the number of herbivores remain more or less constant. जार जिते rate reproduction हेले मध्य number of herbivores remain constant. If the organisms reproduce rapidly, all the resulting offsprings survive and also reproduce at the same rate, then the earth will be overcrowded. जदि ऑर्गेनिज्म मानकर रिप्रोडक्शन रैपिड रेट हे समस्ते सर्वाइव करेंगे ताले कौन हम ना अर्थ विल बी ओवर क्राउडेड विदिन ए शॉर्ट पीरियड. देयर विल बी ए सिवियर स्कार्सिटी ऑफ फूड एंड लैंड फॉर द एवर इंक्रीजिंग पॉपुलेशन ऑफ द ऑर्गेनिजम्स. जदि सब बंचे सेम रेट रिप्रोडक्शन हम अर्थ विल बी ओवर क्राउडेड. डेफिनेटली देयर विल बी शॉर्टेज ऑफ फूड एंड लैंड. खाद्य अभाव घटब रही स्थान भी मिलनी एंड एवर इंक्रीजिंग पॉपुलेशन ऑफ द ऑर्गेनिजम्स ऑन द सरफेस ऑफ अर्थ. सो देयर विल बी सिवियर स्कार्सिटी ऑफ फूड एंड लैंड फॉर द एवर इंक्रीजिंग पॉपुलेशन ऑफ द ऑर्गेनिजम्स ऑन द सरफेस ऑफ अर्थ. Thus, corps and checks operate to keep the number within reasonable limits. Corps and checks operate. जमिति आमे जेतबले रास्ता रे जाउचे रास्ता तयारी हिची सेठी आमे देखुचे हम्प्स रहिची कर्व मध्ये रहिची टर्निंग पॉइंट ओनली टू रिड्यूस द स्पीड ऑफ द व्हीकल्स. एठी सेही भेलिया देयर कर्व्स एंड चेक्स आर देयर. सो कर्व्स एंड चेक्स ऑपरेट टू कीप द नंबर विदिन रीजनेबल लिमिट्स. फॉर एग्जांपल द लिवर फ्लूक दैट इज fasciola hepatica produces thousands of eggs per year. This is a parasite, fasciola, produces thousands of eggs per year, but out of which only few reach up to the adult stage. Only very few reach up to the adult stage, as its development requires specific environment and species intermediate hosts in time. It needs intermediate hosts, specific intermediate hosts in time and specific environment. So only few reach up to the adult stage, although it produces thousands of eggs per year. Thus, the factors limiting the rapid multiplication of organisms include the factors limiting the rapid multiplication of organisms. जो factor गुड़ाक जो rapid multiplication होची ताको limit रखिया पाई number of herbivores should remain constant. से factor गुड़िक होची include food supply, then predation, तांकर जो predator सब रही चंती they will eat the prey, predation, then disease, विभिन्न रोग सब हबो. जमिति फॉर एग्जांपल वर्तमान आमे देखुचे महामारी जमिति ह्यूमन पॉपुलेशन को कमौची. सो दैट इज आल्सो ए फैक्टर. प्रिडेशन, डिजीज, देन क्लाइमेटिक चेंजेस हबो, देन ड्रॉट मरुड़ी हला, बन्या, फ्लड एटसेट्रा. दीज आर द फैक्टर्स. सो thus the factors limiting The rapid multiplication of organisms include food supply, predation, disease, climatic changes, drought, flood, etc. So these are the factors which limit the rapid multiplication of organisms. So we are discussing about Darwinism and the propositions of Charles Darwin. Number one was tendency of overproduction, and number two, herbivores number remains constant. We have already discussed. Now we will go to the third proposition, that is struggle for existence. So, struggle for existence. According to Darwin, the organisms multiply in geometric ratio, whereas the food and space remain more or less constant. So, according to Darwin, the organisms they multiply in geometric ratio, but the food and space remains more or less constant. So, there is intense competition between the individuals to ensure living by obtaining adequate food and suitable shelter. So, there is intensive competition among the organisms or individuals, and main purpose is to endure the adequate food and suitable shelter. Such a competition is called struggle for existence and is of three types. Number one, intra-specific struggle, then inter-specific struggle, and struggle against extra-specific, means against environment. So, first is intra-specific struggle. Intra-specific struggle means it is the competition between the members of a single species. Competition between the members of a single species. For example, we can say competition between the members dogs, or between the deers, or between the elephants, or between the human beings. So, one species, members of one species. As the needs of all individuals are same, and the needs, these include the food, shelter and mate. Food, shelter and mate, these are the needs, and these needs are same of all individuals. So, the competition is absolute. For example, in a forest, a large number of seedlings spring up in clusters. Due to lack of sufficient soil and moisture, some die early. तामाने जदि आमे देखिबा गोटे गछ मूलरे जंगलरे तार गुड़ाए मंजी तले पड़ी चारा होची, सबू चारा गुड़ाक बंचु नाई सीडलिंग्स, कहीं ना लैक ऑफ सॉइल एंड स्पेस, तेणु किछि मरी जाउचंती. So, due to lack of sufficient soil and moisture, some die early. They are still numerous, तथापि मध्य तांको संख्या बहुत अधिका. Still they are numerous until they become tall, and when their branches mingle and shut out light and air. जेतेबेले ता भितरु डेंगा हो गले गछ गुड़ाक तार डाल जो चारिआड़ को मेले दूची, लाइट गुड़ाक तले कमिगला, एयर मध्य आवेलेबल नुह, तेणु जो गुड़ाक सफिसीयेंटली ग्रो करेंगे बहुत बड़ होते से गुड़ा केवल सर्वाइव करेंगे, अन्य गुड़ा भी मरीजे. सो दे आर स्टिल न्यूमरस until they become tall, when their branches mingle and shut out light and air. Because of this, those which grow quickly survive, and others with less vigorous growth die. So, this is intra-specific struggle. then interspecific struggle. Interspecific. So this is the struggle between the members of different species. Intraspecific means members of one species, but here members of different species. So it is the struggle between the members of different species, mainly for food or shelter. It is not for mate, not for mating. It is only for food or shelter. In such a competition, one species may eliminate or limit the number of individuals of other species. So one species, member of one species may eliminate or limit the number of individuals of the other species. For example, rabbit is preyed upon by fox. Rabbit is preyed upon by fox, and fox by tiger on its turn. In this way, the struggle continues between the predator and prey, or the aggressor and the victim. Sometimes food habits of different species are identical. Sometimes the food habits of different species are identical. For example, insects and rats compete with human beings. Insects and rats compete with human beings for food like food grains, vegetables and fruits. So here the insects and rats, आमर जो फूड ग्रेन आम शस्य उत्पादन करुचे ताकू मध्य पोक मैंने खाई दौरान, मूषा मैंने खाई दौरान. सो दैट इज कंपटीशन. सो हियर द फूड हैबिट इज सेम. सो द insects and rats compete with human beings for food like food grains, vegetables and fruits. Then extra specific struggle. Or struggle with environment. Extra specific struggle or struggle with environment. So here there is no competition between the members of same species or different species, here between the living organisms and the environment. So extra specific struggle. Nature exercises a selective force. Nature exercises a selective force in limiting the number of individuals. In limiting the number of individuals. To limit the number of individuals, the environment exercises a force. This is struggle against extreme heat or cold. अत्यधिक जदि गरम है अत्यधिक ठंडा है ताले मध्य किसी ऑर्गेनिज्म दे विल डाई. और एक्सेस ऑफ मॉइस्चर और ड्रॉट अत्यधिक वर्षा है मरुड़ी है वर्षा को न होगी. देन लाइटनिंग, स्टॉर्म्स, अर्थक्वेक्स and volcanic eruptions. So these are the environmental factors. And only those organisms which have the ability to endure these environmental hazards can survive. तेणु जो मानकर केवल ability थिबो एटा को सह्य करिया पई they will survive. कारण धर जितेबाला मरुड़ी हो समस्ते मरी जाऊना किसी बंचुंट, जितेबाला बन्या हो समस्ते मरुना, गोटे जगह भूमिकंप है समस्ते भी मरुना. तेणु जो मानकर एबिलिटी रही है सह्य करने टू एंड्योर दिस दे कैन सर्वाइव. सो इन दिस वे नंबर इज लिमिटेड. देन नंबर 4, वेरिएशन एंड हेरिडिटी. variation and heredity. In response to environment, changes occur in the organisms because the environment is changing. So in response to the environment, changes occur in the organisms which make them distinct from others. They become distinct from others. These differences are known as variations. So no two individuals are exactly alike. No two individuals. And that is known as variation. So it is the difference between the organisms. Some individuals are better adapted or adjusted to their surroundings than others. So some are better adapted or adjusted to their surroundings than others. Darwin considered all these variations to be hereditary. Hereditary means these phenotypic features are transmitted to their next generation. So that is heritable. So Darwin considered all these variations to be hereditary. Those with beneficial variations survive. जो मानकर जो वेरिएशन गुड़ाक जदि बेनिफिशियल होती जो चेंज गुड़ाक है जदि बेटर बेनिफिशियल होती दे सर्वाइव व्हाइल अदर्स विथ हार्मफुल वेरिएशंस आर एलिमिनेटेड जो मानकर जो चेंजटा है एवं से जो वेरिएशन है जदि सेटा हार्मफुल दे आर एलिमिनेटेड मीन्स दे डाई दे बिकम एक्सटिंक्ट जो मानकर बेनिफिशियल वेरिएशन दे विल सर्वाइव. देन नंबर 5 सर्वाइवल ऑफ द फिटेस्ट. और survival of the fittest or natural selection. In the struggle for existence, individuals possessing favorable variations or beneficial variations cope with the changing condition of the environment. They adjust with the environment and survive successfully and perpetuate, means they multiply, they increase their number. Hence, those who prove themselves to be fit to face the hardships of the environment survive. So that is the natural selection. So nature is not selecting. We have to prove ourselves to be fit to the hardships of the environment, and those who prove themselves to be fit to the. So hence, those who prove themselves to be fit to face the hardships of the environment survive. Those who do not possess favorable variations fail to reproduce successfully to continue their race and gradually become extinct. Darwin proposed this fact citing the case of a giraffe. One example, the giraffe. According to Darwin, giraffes the giraffes exhibited great variations in the length of the neck. Means some were having short neck, some having long neck, neck was very long, neck was very short. So these are the variations in giraffe. When grasses became scarce, they had to eat the leaves of the trees which were above the ground. ଯେତେବେଳେ ଘାସ କମିଗଲା ସେତେବେଳେ ତାଙ୍କୁ ଖାଇବାକୁ ପଡ଼ିଲା ଗଛର ପତ୍ର ଯେ ଗ୍ରାଉଣ୍ଡ ଲେଭଲରୁ ବହୁତ ଉପରେ ଅଛି. So the long necked giraffes could get abundant food easily. ଯେଉଁମାନଙ୍କର ନେକ୍ଟା ଟିକେ ବଡ଼ ସେମାନେ ଗଛର ପତ୍ର ଆରାମରେ ପାଇକି ଖାଇଲେ, କିନ୍ତୁ ଯେଉଁମାନଙ୍କର ସର୍ଟ ନେକ୍ ସେ ଆଉ ପତ୍ର ଖାଇପାରିଲେ ନାହିଁ. Hence long necked giraffes could survive and reproduce successfully. On the other hand, the short-necked giraffes could not get enough food and hence gradually became extinct. So short-necked giraffes gradually became extinct. Then number 6, origin of species by natural selection. According to Darwin, in the struggle for existence, the individuals with heritable beneficial variations are selected by nature. Those having heritable beneficial variations are selected by nature to survive, and their successive generations became better adapted to their environment. Their successive generation became adapted better to their environment. The adaptations means the beneficial variations, these are called as adaptations, are preserved and accumulated in the individuals of the species through generations. So धर सपोज फर्स्ट जेनरेशन में गोटे वेरिएशन है सेटा प्रिजर्व हो रहा, तापर सेकेंड जेनरेशन रे आउ गोटे वेरिएशन है बेनिफिशियल वेरिएशन सी भी प्रिजर्व हो रहा, यही भाया जेनरेशन आफ्टर जेनरेशन दीज आर प्रिजर्व एवं आक्युमुलेटेड होगी गुड़ाए वेरिएशन हो गला परे दैट बिकम्स डिफरेंट फ्रॉम द ओल्डेस्ट वन, जोटक आम कहे गोटे न्यू स्पीसीज नुआ स्पीसीज फॉर्मेशन है. सो अल्टीमेटली द क्यूमुलेटिव इफेक्ट of these variations make the possessors sufficiently different from the old ones to be considered as a new species. Se gotae new species hela. So this is origin of species by natural selection. These are the propositions of. So now we'll discuss about objections to Darwinism. Number 1, according to natural selection theory, only beneficial variations of all kinds are inherited. So only beneficial variations of all kinds are inherited, means heritable variations. But sometimes small variations which are not useful to the possessor are also inherited. So this is according to Darwin. Example, small wings of birds. So as per Darwinism, only beneficial variations they are inherited, not other. But actually sometimes small variations which are not useful, these are not beneficial to the possessor, are also inherited. Example is small wings of birds. So this is the number 1 objection. Then number 2, Darwinism does not distinguish between heritable and non-heritable variations. According to Darwin, all variations are heritable. So there is no distinction between heritable and non-heritable variations. Number 3, over-specialization of some organs is often a hindrance. Over-specialization of some organs is often a hindrance instead of being useful to the possessor. Instead of being useful to the possessor, it is rather a hindrance, over-specialized variation. For example, tusks of elephants, that is the elongated incisor, tusks of elephant and antlers of deer. टस्क्स ऑफ एलिफेंट माने हाथीर जो बड़ बड़ दांत दंता हाथीर रही दीटा से गुड़ा इनसीजर जोटा कि तापाई कौन सी बेनिफिशियल नुह रादर से प्रोब्लेम करे खाद्य कामुड़ी की खाइबारे तेणु दैट इज ए हिंड्रांस ओवर स्पेशलाइज्ड. सिमिलरली द एंटलर्स ऑफ डियर हरिण मानकर जो सिंह रही सेटा गोटे हिंड्रांस. Acha. Then number 4, Darwinism fails to explain the occurrence of vestigial organs. Vestigial organs, as already we have discussed, these are reduced organs and having no function, non-functional organs, but they are still present. 100 such vestigial organs have been detected in human being. So Darwinism fails to explain the occurrence of vestigial organs. If the vestigial organs are functionless, then why are they preserved and not developed further by natural selection? Why are they preserved? Because they are functionless. Then number 5 objection, fifth objection, Darwinism explains survival of the fittest, but not arrival of the fittest. This is fifth objection. Then sixth objection, number 6, Darwinism does not highlight on discontinuous variation. That only highlights on continuous variations, not discontinuous variations. Number 8, number 7, it never explains the causes of variation. What is the cause of these variations, these differences? What is the cause? Darwin never explains the causes of variation. Then number 8, natural selection is one of the causes of evolution. Natural selection is one of the causes of evolution, but not the sole cause of evolution. That is not the only cause of evolution, sole cause of evolution.